All right. Hello, folks, and welcome to the A to Z Sports Big Orange Podcast. Charlie Burris, that's Zack H. And wherever you listen throughout the world, we thank you so much for listening to us here on the Big Orange Podcast. We talk everything Vols every week. And if you want to listen to that on the reg, go over to the A to Z Sports Podcast Network feed on Apple or Spotify. And when you get there, rate, review, but most importantly, you should subscribe. If you do subscribe, you won't miss our shows when we drop them on Mondays. And speaking of Mondays, it is one right now at 6 p.m. Eastern time. And that means that we are live on YouTube. And you should go over to the YouTube. Also, A to Z Sports Nashville on YouTube. Hopefully some news coming ASAP on YouTube. But we'll talk about that when I can finally reveal it to you. But go over there, subscribe, notification bell specifically. If you hit the notification bell, you'll be notified when we go live, and then you can come hang out with us and be a part of the show, comment on the show. We love going back and forth with everybody. It's always a great time. At Charlie_Burris, at Zack TNT, at A to Z Sports, and Facebook.com/A to Z Sports Nashville. A to Z Sports.com for all the stuff that Zack writes on the internet. And just as I predicted, Zack, my iPad was dead as an absolute doornail, and I charged it for the last 10 to 15 minutes, and I was like, man, I swear the second we start this show, it's going to come alive. And you know what just happened? It just started back up. That's great. That's really awesome. Could have had my music to start the show. Oh, well, such is life. What is up, Zack?
That's some real week zero college football stuff right there. Still ironing out all the kinks. That's why we do this. You know, you got to get ready for the season, just like Tennessee does against Chattanooga this weekend, and kind of what might be an exhibition game. We hope we got to go through the same thing. Like I said, iron out all the kinks and get it all going for the season.
Yeah, it better not be much tougher than an exhibition game. But I was looking as of right now. I was trying to get it up here. WVLT, the official network of the Vols. The weather for Saturday, we talked about, you were like, oh, it's going to just be an absolute blazer. I think you're right. I think we're looking at 90 degrees, 12:45 p.m. for a kickoff with the first game. And for the folks who have to sit in the sun in Neyland Stadium, may God have mercy on your soul. But the good news is it is game week. It is finally here. We are back. Tennessee football is coming straight at you on Saturday. It's going to be a ton of fun. As you said, hopefully just an exhibition game, a little bit of a warm-up where we're figuring out exactly what this team is going to look like. And, of course, that's what we're going to talk about on tonight's show. They released the depth chart today, and it was interesting. Lots of ore on the depth chart. We're going to discuss that. We're going to preview the actual game. And as is tradition at this point on our show, we're going to do a full season preview and prediction so that we can look as foolish as possible when the season is over. But that'll happen right after I tell you about the good folks at Farm Bureau Health Plans. Farm Bureau Health Plans have been serving Tennesseans for over 75 years. Much has changed in Tennessee over the years, but some has stayed the same. Farm Bureau Health Plans has always valued personal relationships, especially when it comes to good health and good service. Plan on Farm Bureau Health Plans for health, dental, and vision. For better coverage, better rates, and better service, go to fbhp.com/ATOZ or walk into one of their 200-plus locations across the state. That is fbhp.com/ATOZ. Farm Bureau Health Plans. Go get yourself a health plan. All right. Yeah, I finally got it to load. 91 on Saturday, although thunderstorms in the afternoon, which could also be bad news for that game, just in a different way. So maybe bring a poncho, too, along with some sunscreen. So Tennessee plays UTC, 12:45 p.m., SEC Network, and they put out the depth chart. This morning, when Josh Heupel did his press conference, they handed out the depth chart to all of the media members. And I'll just throw it to you here, Zack. It's officially game week. We're finally seeing who who might be playing football for this team this season. What were your thoughts?
I don't think there's any thoughts to have, honestly, because it's just so broad. And I mean, we were kind of expecting that because Heupel, he's done that, but most college coaches at this point treat the depth chart like it's a nuisance to them. And I'm sure it is, especially right now with the transfer portal and trying to keep everyone happy. But I think it's just kind of like a guideline for coaches at this point because they don't really look at this as starters necessarily. It's so matchup based, especially for Josh Heupel and his offense. You got your core guys. Obviously, we know who the starting line's going to be. Starting offensive line's going to be, but even that had some oars on it. It was surprising to see, left tackle, right tackle, some oars there with John Campbell and Dane Davis, and I believe Lance Hurd and Larry Johnson maybe there at tackles. And we know who's going to start at those positions. So I'm not really sure what Heupel's angle is on that. Just trying to keep everyone happy or really open-ended. I'm not sure. But as far as, wide receivers and stuff like that, it's going to be, who are they playing against? What are they going to try to do that game? Maybe Square White can attack Oklahoma better and maybe they like Dante Thornton against Alabama better or Kentucky. It just depends on what they're planning to do when they come out for those first couple of drives as to who starts the game, but it doesn't really mean that those players are going to play all the snaps or even the majority of the snaps in some cases. So it really is the depth charts in football anymore, even at the pro level to some extent, are pointless outside of a few positions. It was kind of shocking. I think I saw there were 34 oars listed on the depth chart. I mean, that is
perfect.
I mean, we've seen this for years, even back to the Butch Jones era. There was always a lot of oars, but back then it seemed like they were more scattered, just a few scattered in here and there. It was more surprising to not see an oar on the depth chart listed by certain players. Obviously, Nico was one of those. It's an undisputed starter, and there's no oar there.
I'll ask you this. There were only 5 positions on the entire depth chart that did not have an oar. I'm looking at it. Can you name the 5?
I think it was Nico.
Yep.
I don't have it in front of me, and I really haven't looked at it that in depth, to be honest, because it was so. I think Cooper Mays at center.
That is true, except at the backup position, there's an or for William Satterwhite or Vyson Lang, so we don't know the depth players there. Yeah. There are 5 that between everybody there is no or at any spot.
Okay, I think Javante Spraggins at right guard was one.
Yep.
Was James Pierce?
No.
Oh,
James Pierce or Joshua Josephs or Caleb Herring or Jordan Ross.
Well, that's not really that whole unit right there.
Yeah.
Keenan Peely maybe at middle linebacker.
No, there were every single position on defense had an or. It's all special teams.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so punter Jackson Ross. I'm guessing long snapper. I can't remember his name. He's got the bleach blonde hair. He's from Memphis. I can't.
Matthew Solansky. But there's even an or there. Or Bennett Brady.
Bennett Brady's the one I was thinking of.
It is. Okay. Well, either way, Matthew Solansky's kid's been there for he's a redshirt senior, I think.
Yeah.
Jackson Ross at punter, Josh Tuberville for kickoff, and then Holder, which is Jackson Ross. So thank you, Josh Heupel, for that clarity.
That was really one that we were kind of concerned about.
Yeah, well, and ultimately, punter is Jackson Ross, and then Josh Tuberville is the backup. So how much variety was there really there anyway? But yeah, I mean, our running back, Dylan Sampson, or Cam Selton, or Deshaun Bishop, or Khalifa Keith, or Peyton Lewis.
That one kind of surprised me because I figured it would be Dylan Sampson.
I did too.
I thought Pierce, Cooper Mays, just some of these more veteran players that have been around the program for so long and have emerged as team leaders, and Sampson is definitely in that category. I thought he would be, singled out as a starter because, I mean, really the way the coaches have talked about him, that's how they've talked about him as the guy. But they're going to rotate at that position. Joey Housley said it last week that they plan to play 3 or 4 guys when they can and kind of ride the hot hand. That's always been their philosophy. They're not going to veer from that just because Jabari Small and Jalen Wright are off to the NFL. They really believe in Peyton Lewis. They really believe in Deshaun Bishop, it sounds like, and Cam Selton is getting healthier. And you got Khalifa Keith there too. So maybe that depth will be a little better than we were anticipating. starting to think now when you kind of look at Jabari Small in the NFL with the Titans, I wondered for a while why they didn't try to get him to come back for one more year just because of his knowledge of the offense and pass protection, because it doesn't look like he's going to stick with the Titans and he might have a tough time hanging on with the team. But it really seems like they just liked the guys that they had. And I think they didn't want to upset anyone in that room and risk losing a Cam Seldon or a Peyton Lewis because you brought back Jabari Small.
Yeah, I could see with Cam Seldon, Peyton Lewis, they're dudes who are expecting to in time find their spot on this team for sure. And you can expect all you want. You still got to put in the work and you got to become that guy. But I think that would have been very crowded if you did that.
I think Lewis could be like Dylan Sampson's freshman year. Hopefully, a little bit better in pass protection, but just that electric element that he brings. I mean, he's supposedly one of the fastest guys on the team.
Yeah, if College Football 25 is any indication, I believe the fastest guy on the team, according to College Football 25. So in a video game, at least, he's pretty speedy. But yet, it almost seems like that running back is sort of a technical, or Dylan Sampson is definitely the starter, and then the way that Josh Heupel just runs that offense, without a doubt, they're going to play other guys because he just rotates out.
It will be interesting to see how it shakes out at that position.
Yeah, but some of the other ones, that I thought were interesting. Left guard, Andre Carriage or Jackson Lampley.
Sounds like it's going to be Carriage, I think.
Yeah, and that's been speculation there. The backup to John Campbell is Dane Davis, which I guess we suspected. Although
really, if I think if something happens to Cooper Mays in the first game of the season,
it'll probably be Dane Davis.
Yeah, and I'm talking about like if there's a tweaked ankle and he's got to come out for a few series. Yeah, Dane Davis is going in there and holding things down.
Yeah, and Ethan Davis is your top build tight end, followed by Holden Stays and Miles Kitselman. But
he has seniority, so that's those other two are transfers.
It is what it is. But otherwise, yeah, not a ton stuck out to me here. And as we were mentioning, Christian Harrison over Boo Carter, although another one, I think we expected that.
There's an or there as well, though, right?
There is, yes, and they're both. If you read into these types of things, they're both bolded. they're in bold text, and I genuinely, I think that does denote. Does it say that bold text means anything on here? It doesn't. Yeah,
you think they're going to reveal that?
No, because it just says that the SEC sign means that the kid has graduated, and a star denotes a super senior who elected to return in 2024. So
is
the
last year of the super senior COVID.
Yeah, 2020 was the add-on year.
There might be a few, maybe like redshirt senior 6 years. I guess they could still next year.
If you were a freshman in 2020, you'd have next year, I think. 2025, maybe.
Yeah, sounds right.
Yeah. Well, either way, you can still end up with a Keenan Peely who's there for 14 years in college football. But it's
almost a decade.
Really genuinely, 2016? We talked about that last week. The 2016 recruiting class. He is 8 years into this whole deal. It's crazy. But hey, at least you have a super senior as your middle linebacker there.
Probably a doctorate by this point.
He could be. It would be 8 years, 4 years, and 4 years. you could be. Man. Hopefully he's working on something good there. I don't know what his major is, but regardless, it's at least a fun look. It's not surprising with Josh Heupel. It's kind of the same with his injury reports. You know what you're gonna get. You're gonna get we'll see later in the week how he's doing. It's day to day, the week to week. He's questionable.
Tennessee is questionable to play this game this weekend.
Yes.
It's questionable whether we will be there or not.
Every single player on this team is questionable. And essentially what that means is every single player will either be ready on Saturday and 100% or they might be out for the season. We don't really know.
Yeah, there's no in between apparently.
Yeah, that's those are your two options. No, we kid. It's just funny. I mean, it really is just a meme at this point. They got to be doing this stuff on purpose, right? Like it's just ridiculous. But at least we do get to see. I think you are seeing who the starters are going to be, and that's enlightening at least a little bit. I think you're seeing who won out in fall camp, and then especially at some of these positions where you weren't totally sure, you're seeing who are going to be the depth pieces, especially like center, some stuff like that. It's interesting. I wouldn't put a lot of stock in it. Like you said, ultimately, I think even at center, you might see a Dane Davis.
Yeah.
Just because they want a senior guy to step in if Cooper Mays goes
and
down.
He's done it. He's done it for some snaps before in some games. He can get by in a pinch, especially against Chattanooga.
Definitely. And it's just going to be a game to feel everything out. And we'll talk about it.
It is good that Boo Carter is at least kind of listed as a co-starter, because I think that's been like the one concern that everybody's had. Like, are they really going to not play this guy because he's a true freshman when he might be one of the most talented and athletic players and competitive players on the team? I think we're going to see a decent amount of Boo Carter.
Well, and as everybody kind of speculated too, Will Brooks listed at safety as the number one bolded guy there. Now that's also alongside Christian Charles, and I think that that probably is going to be split time there, but still, there was just that through line all camp is just like, oh, Will Brooks, he might be a walk on, but he's now with that injury is looking like he might get his shot. I think he might here. So, and I'm all for it.
I think he knows he might not be the most athletic guy out there, but he knows where to be and what to do, and we know that Willie Martinez and Tim Bates value that highly. So I think that's going to get him on the field pretty often, and it's a good story for him. I mean, I know you can look at it in a negative way, like why is Tennessee having to play a walk-on, but you see that from time to time. There are these random great stories where that happens, and I think that's the right way to look at the Will Brooks situation there.
For a defensive back, there's a lot of value in just knowing where to be, right place, right time. There have been some defensive backs that aren't the speediest dudes on planet Earth, but they just knew where to be. And
prevent those busted plays. That's the biggest thing.
Yes, that can be super valuable. But got some comments here before we preview the UTC game. Cody says, love the show. Go Vols. Go Vols. And we appreciate it. Chris Brown says, fellas, I am ready. Charlie, I missed the Florida Man segment from back in the day. that was from Swain Event. We used to talk about Florida Men. Maybe we should bring that back. That'd be fun. Or does that belong to Swain? I can't take that. I don't know. But Lou Man says he was 6th on the like button. We appreciate it, Lou Man, even though you're a Vandy fan. And Ginger said, bold means they are on the roster for this game. Did they cover that somewhere? Does it say that and I missed it? Because that would mean that some guys like Caleb Beasley, John Slaughter, Idris Farouk are not on the roster for this game. So
I'm not sure that works, since it's not really a travel situation. They're all at home. Who knows?
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, we'll find out soon enough on Saturday exactly what that means.
I mean, that's a game where you really want to give some guys some work, honestly, against Chattanooga.
Yes. You should be rolling deep in this one, especially third, fourth quarter. Hopefully you're up 45-0 and you can roll in a bunch of guys. Billy Bob says, since the Big Orange won the first BCS national championship, maybe it will happen with the first 12-team playoff. Lordy, I certainly hope so. And that begins with this UTC game. Now, Zach, admittedly, I don't think either of us have dove down deep into the UTC roster, but we do have to talk about this actual game and preview it quickly before we give our full season preview. Do you have any thoughts on the Mocs and the powerhouse that they are in the SoCon Conference?
Yeah, I mean, this is obviously a game that it's a pay game. They're getting paid to go up there and play this game. It's an exhibition game essentially for Tennessee. It's a scrimmage in a sense. I mean, if you lose this game, there's deeper conversations that have to be had. You're going back to what, 2019, Jeremy Pruitt at that point. But you just got to go out there and iron out all the things you want to iron out. You finally get to go against a team that's not your own. It's like some of these preseason NFL games where you can kind of do some different things and see how it's going to work going up against a defense that doesn't really know, they know what you do, but they haven't played against it in practice every single day. I'm guessing Tennessee's defense, they know some of the tells of this offense. They can stop them in practice from time to time. This is a situation where you get to try out some things and see how it's going to work because Tennessee has added a few wrinkles. Josh Heupel's alluded to that. He knows that, for example, they've had issues in the red zone, especially last season. 2022, they were really good in the red zone. I think they were number 3 in the nation. That's why they were 11 and 10 and 2 during the regular season. Last year, they were number 73. You had a lot of reasons for that. Joe Milton at quarterback wasn't quite as crisp. Your tight ends, I think you've upgraded that tight end position quite a bit this season. They're talking about maybe some 2 tight end sets on the field in the red zone, some different things you can do with Ethan Davis down there, who's really athletic in a mismatch. It'll be interesting to see if they break any of those looks out against Chattanooga, or do they kind of save that because you got a big game against NC State coming up the next week. You don't want to give away too much there because that's a game that, I know we'll get into that next week, but that's a game that you feel like Tennessee should win. It's in Charlotte. But at the same time, NC State's not a pushover. I think they're ranked in the top 25 preseason. Got a quarterback from Coastal Carolina that transferred in that's a pretty good player. That's a game where you might want to hide a few things here against Chattanooga and not give everything away. So it's going to be an intriguing game, I think, just to see what Tennessee shows and what they don't show. And if they don't show a lot, there's no point in, getting up in arms of, oh, this offense hasn't changed any, because it might not be the offense that we're going to see the rest of the season.
Yeah, I'm not going to put a whole lot of stock in that. Obviously, everybody's going to be looking at Nico. To, what's he going to do? How's he going to look? Is he this? Is he that? I think you're exactly right. I think they're going to be as vanilla as possible in this game. And what you really got to hope is that you don't have a situation like with Austin Peay last year, who I think is in the SoCon with Chattanooga. I actually saw they played each other last year, and Chattanooga did beat them just barely, 17-14.
Did that coach leave there from Austin Peay? He was an intriguing
psycho.
Yeah, he was all over the place. But I mean, his game plan, you got to respect what they did and the fits that they gave Tennessee. They weren't going to win that game, but they kept Tennessee's first string in that game for a lot longer than we expected. I don't even know if Nico didn't even play in that game at all. I don't think. I think it was Milton all the way.
No, and I remember being kind of pissed off because we all wanted Nico to play, and Austin Peay came with this goofy, we never do this in any other game sort of stuff where they just pulled out all these weird stops. And, you shouldn't lay down and just let Tennessee steamroll you.
No.
But to come in and do that goofy nonsense that's completely different from anything else you would ever do. And I don't remember if there were any real injuries in that game, but that one also gets me. If it looks like you're taking shots at guys, who was it? Akron that did that.
Oh, yeah, that's the Tillman game, I think, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. And anything like that, like, get out of here and never come back. I don't want to ever see a team like that again. And hopefully that doesn't happen. And Chattanooga, hey, play hard, play as well as you possibly can. But any of this goofy stuff or any sort of like trying to injure, take cheap shots, all this, that is probably the single thing that makes me despise a bye game the most. And it's probably the single thing that makes me go like, can we just get rid of bye games and just make everything, a conference game or a Power 5 game, or now what is it, Power 4 or whatever. Because it just, you wouldn't have these like weeks off, but you also don't have that specter of like, what if our dude rips his knee in half against freaking Furman, and you could just avoid that. So let's not have that happen. Nice and easy.
Speaking of Furman, I think that's who Ole Miss plays the first game.
A big test for.
For you're right. I mean, these pay games. I wish there was a different way to do it. I would love if they moved this game to like the spring instead of having a spring game. You kind of had this exhibition game against the Chattanooga. One, it gives you, I mean, you're still out there playing football, practicing. I know the injury thing gets brought up, but that can happen at any point. I mean, else Jordan Thomas this season to an injury and happened in practice. That's usually where they do happen, honestly. I would love to move that to like the spring and just get a more like structured schedule with the way college football is going, where everybody's kind of playing something similar. Because right now, I mean, if you look at Florida and Billy Napier, I mean, they got one of the most brutal schedules that we've ever seen in the SEC when you combine their out of conference too, playing Miami and Florida State. And then Missouri, who doesn't play hardly anybody that's good in the SEC. They don't play. They play Georgia, LSU, Tennessee, Kentucky. There's another one, Florida, maybe. I can't remember, but these schedules are so unbalanced at this point, and you got these Chattanooga type games thrown in there. It does feel like some scheduling overhaul needs to happen for the entire sport at some point soon.
Add that ninth league game, and take away one of these opportunities and stop it with neutral site not preseason, neutral site early season games. Just play home and home and home.
I mean, NC State home and home. Go to Raleigh, play in Knoxville. I mean, those games are so much more enjoyable. I mean, and you get to see venues that you would never, you don't usually get to see Tennessee play in. I mean, Virginia home and home would have been fun. Just anything different would be nice. You've seen these teams play in Charlotte and Atlanta and Dallas, New Orleans, plenty of times at this point. Let's just save that for the postseason.
Yes, I cannot stand it. But Randy in the comments says, watching from Lexington, North Carolina, go Big Orange. Go Big Orange. Randy Timothy says, yes, vanilla offense, stay healthy. Those are the keys. And Pylon says, the Mocs will not score more than 14 points. On that note, let's predict the outcome of this game, Zach. I think we are in agreement that it will be a Tennessee victory, but we got to go final score here. What are you thinking for Tennessee Chattanooga?
Yeah, I think Tennessee covers. I think last I saw it was like 38.5. I think was the spread, somewhere around there. I would hope that they would cover that at this point. I think I can't remember the last time Tennessee played Chattanooga. It was before Heupel was here, but it was a 45-0 or something like that. So I'm not going to disrespect the Mocs that much. I think they'll get on the board. I'll go Tennessee 52, Chattanooga 3.
I like that. I did see Alabama last year, 66-10 was the final score. That was the last time they played a major SEC opponent. Not sure if this Tennessee team is as good as Alabama's team last year, although Tennessee with Joe Milton had a 14-point lead over that Alabama team at one point. So
yeah,
you never know. I'll go. What will I go with? I'll give Chattanooga 7 points. I'll say that they score a touchdown late game. 52-7.
I was hoping you might go 70 there.
70-7. Yeah.
I mean, we've seen Josh Heupel put the runs. I mean, was it UT Martin? He almost went for 70.
I mean, I'll take it. Yeah. Run it up. No mercy. Hey.
Did you know if they get Gaston Moore and Jake Mertlinger in that game late? I mean, Heupel's going to run his offense. That's his philosophy. It's not, let's just run the clock out. These are reps. And that's the way I think you should look at it. That's the whole point is development. I think, you got to run your offense and let those guys get those reps. It's the only way.
So Sean actually did say, I didn't see this 70-7.
Oh, there you go.
Comments. and Billy Bob thought my score 52, but he said 52-12. He gave UTC a little more credit. Pylon says Vols 62, Mocs 6. That would be a nice beatdown. And Noah says Zach has the best voice in the business, and Charlie is my dog too. Thank you, Noah.
Must be my mom's burner account.
Noah James. It's a cool burner name.
That'd be a good football name.
Yeah. Timothy says, if our backups score, it could happen. It really could. I mean, what you put against Missouri a couple of years ago, outside of that embarrassment from last year, what did you put up on Missouri? Like 60? Was it 62? Something like that?
Oh yeah, that was the game where there was a little bit of I think Heupel was calling timeouts at the end, trying to score late, and there was a little bit of controversy at the end of that game in 2022.
Yeah, that was the one where I remember people got up in arms about it, and then I had to take of like run it up on absolutely everybody. South Carolina was the next week, and Tennessee lost. So,
Oh,
if I'm thinking correctly,
I think you're right. That is how that.
a series of events.
Yeah, because Missouri was right after that Georgia game, so it's like, it's a nice bounce back performance there for Tennessee.
Yeah.
It could happen though this game. Gaston Moore knows this offense extremely well. He's been in it since he was at UCF and before he transferred to Tennessee. The guy, he's not going to go out there and be an every week SEC starting quarterback. I don't think, but he's a talented guy. We've seen him make some throws in the spring game 2 years ago. He's looked good in practice at times, so he could lead some drives.
I hope it does happen. Just like with Nico last year, I want to see those backups in ASAP. And just 30 points from Nico, bunch of yards. I would say like a rushing touchdown because he had how many rushing touchdowns did he have in that bowl game? 3. Yeah, I don't even need to see that. Don't make him use his legs because we don't want to risk injury here. But yeah, get him in there. Let him show off. Get him out of the game. Although Noah follows up his last comment and he says, "I'm nervous about the game, honestly." Hey, aren't we all? First game jitters.
Yeah, I think it's more of a season, like nervous about the season. We talked about this a little bit last week, where you get these expectations, and it's exciting what Tennessee can accomplish, but then it's also nerve wracking because it's like, well, what if they don't? What if some things don't go their way and it's 8-4? That what then? So I think that's where some of the nerves come from.
I agree. I'm nervous about the season at large. I'll be very nervous next week because that is one where you win it, it really doesn't mean a lot. But if you lose it, it's a bad omen.
Really, there's several games early. Like, I'm sure we'll get into that with the schedule prediction stuff here. But there's a few games early that are kind of like that are big games, but at the same time, they don't mean a lot winning them, but they mean a lot if you lose them.
Yes. Well, Eric says 58-7. He thinks it's going to be a blowout 2. So there you go. There's our prediction. So I said 52-7. Yours was
52-3.
52. Oh, we both said 52. I didn't even think about it. I thought you said a different number other than 52. Maybe that's why I thought 52.
Lock it in. 52 points is what they're scoring.
Hey, there you go. Yeah, and we had it in the comments too. We got a 58, and then Noah says 59, 59-10.
One more touchdown.
Yeah, that's okay. All for it. Just win big, win easy, and we'll be all right. So let's move on to a full season prediction here. I'm happy to talk about what I predicted last year for Tennessee, and put one on the record for this coming season too. We'll do that right after I tell you about the good folks at Zen Sports, the new sportsbook in Tennessee that's bringing sports betting to a whole new level. When you sign up for Zen Sports, you'll automatically earn up to a $100 no danger first wager. If your bet loses, you'll be reimbursed for the amount of your bet up to $100. But there's even more good news. They have a one-of-a-kind VIP rewards program. And if you qualify, you'll earn monthly comps at sporting events, concerts, you name it. There are even sportsbook bonuses. But the Zen Sports VIP program is by invite only. So go to zensports.com/VIP if you think you qualify and check it out. What are you waiting for? Zen Sports offers true odds on all parlays. Get going and download their app at zensports.com today. That is Zen Sports. Betting just got better. If you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-889-9789. Terms and conditions apply. No danger. First wager limited. Plus 500 odds to qualify. Boosted odds are derived from equivalent parlay bets offered in Tennessee. Must be 21 or older in Tennessee to bet. Zen Sports. There's a good omen for you. I got through the disclaimer at the end of the Zen Sports read without fumbling over anything. So that's kind of like at a shoot around before a basketball game where you make your final shot. That's the broadcaster equivalent of that. that's stupid. Anyway, so last year before the season, obviously Joe Milton was your quarterback, and it was a little bit of a different look team. And I predicted that Tennessee would go 11-1. Ultimately, they went 9-4. And so I was just a little bit off. Missouri was a lot better than I think a lot of people thought. You should have beaten Alabama because you had a 14-point lead at halftime. And Florida, complete disaster. I thought they would beat Florida because Florida stunk, and I think Florida's going to stink again this year. You better not stink and lose that game. Yeah, it didn't go as planned. Joe Milton didn't run the offense as efficiently as you would have hoped. But now Nico's your quarterback. You have a lot of exciting talent at the skill positions. You have a lot of exciting talent on the defensive line. I think you even have exciting talent at defensive back and at linebacker with some sort of unknown entities. Your Aaron Carters, your Boo Carters, and so I think this season has a ton of potential. But as we were just saying, also nerve-wracking because there's a ton of potential. You're gonna have high expectations. And I'll throw it to you first here, Zach. How are you feeling just right off the jump before we go to a true season prediction here?
I mean, there's a lot of unknowns, obviously, with this team because you got a new starting quarterback and a lot of new running back room, pretty much. I feel pretty optimistic just because of the vibe of this team, the competitiveness that they've had during fall camp at all these positions. You got wide receivers. I mean, you're playing 3 or 4 guys at a time. You got 7 or 8 guys that want to get on the field badly. Same thing with the running back room, the secondary, all that shaking out. Sometimes uncertainty at these positions can be a good thing because everyone's fighting for a spot. I think that competition is obviously extremely important. That's how you get better. Those are the teams that go deep into the postseason. And it feels like Tennessee really has that. And they believe they can win, and they're going out there to win. I think they're focused. You heard Josh Heupel today talking about, being asked about the playoff and season expectations. And it's really, he talked about that some during SEC media days and talking about the standard is to win a championship at Tennessee. But today it was like a switch was flipped, and it's no, this is we got to 1-0 each week. We got to worry about this game right here, and that's it. We can't worry about down the road because that doesn't matter. All that matters is this week. And I know it's a lot of coach speak there, but it just seems like they're focused on the job each week, the task at hand. They know it's a long season, and they got to take it game by game. They understand that. So I'm feeling pretty optimistic, even with the unknowns. How optimistic? Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to say before you've even seen them play a single game. But when you look at their schedule and you look at it on paper, I do feel like there's one way that it looks like it could and should play out if things go like we think they're going to go. And right now, we should be optimistic based on what we've heard from fall camp. I think every Tennessee fan should be very optimistic. It's not saying that you got this expectation that they're going to go win the national championship. That's such a long way away. So many things have to play out. We just have to see what kind of position they're in later in the year. But I think there's a lot of reasons to be really optimistic, and like another 2022 type season could be in store.
I think it sort of comes down to Nico. Not to put too much pressure on the kid, but you just look at a macro sense in college football right now. The quarterback is almost everything. And James Pierce is going to be a dog, and hopefully you have some guys that can step up in the defensive backfield. I think you got some serious talent, a wide receiver, and we know that Dylan Sampson's a dog, but Nico, this team goes as Nico goes. Now, I always go back to a season like Texas A&M with Johnny Manziel. That team really wasn't that good overall, but because of Johnny Manziel, he carried them to heights they never could have reached with another dude because he was just a gamer. When the lights were on, he stepped up. He became that guy. And I think Nico in the system with the guy that it seems like he can be, it has that potential. The possibility is there for, like you said, a 2022-ish campaign. And I am so nervous about how exactly that goes because it could be so special, so special. And you probably only have him for 2 years. So you got to take advantage while you have it. We talked about it. Was it last week or the week before that in reality, this season might be one that you need to take advantage of. Kind of like you go back to 2015 with Butch Jones. 2016 ended up being kind of the best year for Butch, but in reality, 2015, you had Alabama on the ropes. You had Florida on the ropes. You had Oklahoma on the ropes. All of those teams.
Arkansas too.
You were up by 14 against Arkansas. All of those. I mean, you were right on the verge of going 11-1 that year. And you blew it at every turn. And now, I mean, you have the generational guy. We hope. We have a guy that at least on paper looks like he could be the generational guy. And in your bowl game, look like he could be that dude. And he has, as you were saying, he has the vibes. He seems like he is a good athlete leader. And he from the second he showed up has seemed like he is wise beyond his years and just has what could be that secret sauce. What you saw with like the baseball team this year, they had whatever that is that made it all come together, because I think ultimately, especially pitching, did they have the strongest bullpen in America? No, they did not. But in the moments when it mattered, Kirby Connell made it happen. He's not going to play a second in the MLB, but he always came through when you needed him to. And can you find guys like that on this football team that are just those dudes? Like, Will Brooks, maybe. He's a walk-on. But if he becomes a solid safety for you, what a story that would be. I don't know who it'll be, but it is Nico. And then it's finding those dudes, the other guys that aren't James Pearson, Nico, and maybe Chris Brazel, whoever, Dylan Sampson, who might be these guys that are your stars. Who will be the dudes that round out everything to make it that special season? I hope it does happen. I mean, we saw that in 2022, some of the guys that you ended up having, and maybe I think the potential is even higher this year. Yeah. And I think your schedule's a little more favorable even. We'll see. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, I think so. You go back to that 2022 season, and there were so many. You look back at the things that were said before that season. I'll never forget Jalen Hyatt a few weeks before the season started. He said, meeting with the media in the middle of the week, he's like, this offense is going to be the best in the nation. I'm going to tell you that right now. And everybody laughed. You know, opposing fan bases laughed a lot. I remember seeing the comments from Georgia fans, like, this guy's delusional. And, you know, I think even some Tennessee fans were like, man, I hope. But, you know, when have we seen that? Even coming off that 2021 season. And they did. They had the number one scoring offense in the nation in 2022. And there was just this confidence about that team going into that season. And once they won that game against Pittsburgh in overtime, that it really, you know, they believed it fully at that point. It felt like last season we heard a lot of positive stuff before the season. And I felt like we all kind of bought into that a little bit because of what Joe Milton did in that Clemson game and the Orange Bowl. There are times, you know, listening to like Joey Hosley talk, the offensive coordinator, and some of the other players on the team, like they were trying to convince us and themselves and Joe Milton that this was going to be an elite offense. Like it really felt like that. I mean, some of the stuff that I heard Joey Hosley say, and I love the guy, but it felt like he was in the media trying to build up Joe Milton's confidence at times. I mean, when he talked about that long run he had against, it was, I can't remember who they were playing. Was it UConn maybe, where he had that 80-yard run where, you know, it was a quarterback run. Like he pulled it, read the defense, and it wasn't a scramble. It wasn't improvised. It was kind of a design play. Like that wasn't there. We're going to take this. He's fast. He ran straight. He scored. It wasn't one of those Hendon Hooker, you know, scrambling around, you know, knocking guys over, picking up 15 yards to extend the drive type situation against Florida, you know, like we saw in 2022. So little things like that, it kind of felt like they were trying to make themselves believe. And going into this season, it feels more like 2022, where it's this quiet, unassuming, confidence where they feel good about each other. They feel good about other position groups. And you've seen that a lot. I mean, you see DBs talking about the wide receivers. You see Willie Martinez gets asked about Chris Brazel, and he just kind of grins and laughs up there. He's like, yeah, that guy's a problem. You start hearing stuff like that, and you really start to believe, like, hey, this team, they have a lot of dogs on this team, it feels like, with guys like Brazel and Sampson and even Nico to some extent. It seems like you combine all that with a lot of talent, and that's when special seasons can happen. And I want you fans to get too excited because you just don't know what to expect till you really see them out there. But I think there's a real possibility that this team makes the playoff and is in contention. They have just as good of a chance as anyone, really, outside of that, like Georgia tier, I guess, where they're kind of by themselves. I mean, what is Ole Miss, Missouri? I mean, Tennessee's right there with them. They're just as likely to make a run as those programs.
100% agree. I hope it does happen. I'm on pins and needles because it seems like such an exciting opportunity with the talent that you have right now. Some of the guys that Josh Heupel's brought in, obviously primary among them, Nico. You could really be onto something here. So let's talk about that. 12 games coming straight at you, starting on Saturday. I guess I'll go first. Well, here we do have a couple of comments already. Pylon says 10-2 with losses to Alabama and Georgia. We could probably beat Bama if we live up to our hype. Billy Bob says 10-2. Lou Man, who the noted Vandy fan that watches our show for whatever reason, he says 5-7.
That's more optimistic than I expected.
That's true. He didn't say 0-12. And then he's having a battle in the comments here about the Titans. I think Zach and I are kind of in agreement that the Titans might be in for a rough campaign this year.
Yeah, I wouldn't expect a whole lot there. I think Houston's probably going to run that division.
Unless Levis can pull a rabbit out of the hat that we have never seen in his entire football career. Yeah, maybe. But with that said, to the season, I am going to go overall. I think 10-2 is going to be my prediction for this year. And the losses differ from the comment there. I will say the loss will be at Oklahoma and at Georgia. You beat Alabama at home. We'll see with Alabama. I am not sure one way or another exactly how that will go. Milroe has never been that convincing. He pulled off that great win against Georgia, but then, almost lost some other ones that would have been stinkers for them last year. Lost to Texas, whatever happened. And with a completely new coach, new staff, everything, we'll see how that goes. But that's what I'll say. It's in Neyland Stadium, such a great environment, and that will mean a win in Fayetteville, which I think would be cool. It's been kind of a house of horrors for us, much like the basketball arena there. But you won in the basketball arena this past season, so maybe you can duplicate that here. I'll say you beat Florida because it's in Neyland Stadium, kind of like that Alabama game. It's in Neyland Stadium. I also think Florida's going to suck this year. I mean, Graham Mertz, this is who we're going with. And maybe like Will Levis with the Titans, maybe he can find some gear that we've never seen in his entire football career. We'll find out. And then, of course, I mean, you're going to be Kentucky. Mississippi State, that's one.
That could be a tricky one.
If you lose that one.
Yeah.
We'll see. Maybe Mississippi State will be better than.
I don't think that Tennessee's going to lose that game by any means. I think it'll be more Austin P light because it's you're going up against the mirror image of your offense essentially in Mississippi State with a coach that
Jeff Levy,
has been alongside Heupel for over 20 years. He was a student assistant at Oklahoma in the early 2000s. These guys know each other. He's worked for Josh Heupel. They run the same offense. It comes from the same, Art Briles kind of inspired scheme. They know what each other does, and they know somewhat how to defend it, a little bit better than some other programs because they do it every single day in practice. So that's one where you're going to have more talent. You should win that game handily, but I think it could be a little bit more difficult than you'd expect just because of the Levy effect.
Tougher than it should be. I could absolutely see that because that happened with Josh Heupel. It catches teams off guard because it sort of elevates your offense to a point that it wouldn't be able to be at otherwise. I could absolutely see that. So, but Kentucky win, Vandy win, and you come in clock in at 10-2 with another special win over Alabama, hopefully. And Lou Man says he upped his to 6-6. What a gift! Thank you, Lou Man. What are you thinking, Zach?
Man, it's so tough because if you just say like, hey, what do you think Tennessee's going to go this year? I would probably say 10-2. Like that's a safe, fair guess. With the possibility that if things don't go right, maybe they go 9-3. But if things, when you look at this schedule, when you look game by game, and I'm like, okay, I think the game everybody points at as an automatic loss, no matter what, is that game in Athens, right? Like that's probably going to be a loss. Not that I don't think Tennessee can't win the game. Like I think they definitely could if they play really well and Georgia doesn't. I mean, they weren't that far out of that game in 2022 in Athens. Outside of that game, I think they beat Florida. I'm like you. I don't think Florida's going to be very good. I think that's a game you really have to win in Neyland Stadium. You got a lot more talent than you did a couple years ago, and you got more talent than you had last year. Alabama, same thing. It's at home. You should have beat them in Tuscaloosa last season with Nick Saban on the sideline, and you let that game get away. With a new coach coming in, I don't think that's a game you can lose. Like, even though it's Alabama, I think you just gotta look at that team as just another team in the SEC. It's Kalen DeBoer now, and I don't know what to expect from DeBoer. I think he's a good coach, obviously, with what he's done at Washington. And I think his offense can work just fine in the SEC. I mean, Josh Heupel's offense is working just fine in the SEC, but it takes a little while to get it going. That's a big culture change there. Like, DeBoer's not Saban. It's a completely different style. And I don't think you can marry those styles. I think he's got to be his own guy, just like Josh Heupel's been his own guy. I think that's a big reason why Heupel was able to flip the culture so fast, was because there was no culture when he showed up in 2021. I mean, he pretty much got to start from scratch. And DeBoer doesn't, and Saban's hanging around there. Not saying that he's going to be a disaster by any means, but I think it could be a season that Alabama fans aren't used to. So I think you win that game. And really, I think you beat NC State. I think you beat Arkansas, Mississippi State, and Kentucky. The only other game on the schedule, that I would be hung up on is that Oklahoma game, because Tennessee has had some trouble on the road under Josh Heupel. South Carolina game in 2022, the Georgia game in 2022, last year at Florida, at Alabama, at Missouri. I mean, those are games where they've struggled, but they've won on the road too. They won at LSU in a day game. They've won at Kentucky against some Kentucky teams that can be tough to play against. I think Heupel's well aware that narrative is out there, and we've seen when he's been criticized over certain things before that they've improved the next season. In 2021, they had trouble in third and short goal line situations, and they got a lot better in 2022. There were some different wrinkles there that they showed. I think that they've made it a priority to get better on the road. They've been trying to deal with some crowd noise and stuff in practice. I think with everything going on, all the emotion around that game, I think it's a game that Josh Heupel badly wants to win. I don't think he's going to get caught up in the, I'm back in Oklahoma on this sideline. If anything, I think he's going to be comfortable and familiar to him because he's been in that stadium so many times. He led that program to a national championship. He's been through, the highest of highs there and the lowest of lows, getting let go after the 2014 season. I think Tennessee wins that game. Like, it's hard for me to look at that game on paper and say, Oklahoma wins this game. Like, Tennessee should win that game. So I think I have to pick them to win that game. So I think I'm going to beat 11-1, going into this season. Just
wow.
Just when you look at the schedule, I'm not saying for sure that's what's going to happen, but it should. If this team plays like we think they're capable of playing, that is what should happen.
There you have it. 10-2, 11-1 for predictions for us. Jared in the comments says 10-2. And then Noah asked, at safety, do we think that Boo is the guy? I hope so.
And did you hear the comment that Andre Turrentine made about him today? I absolutely loved it.
I don't think so. I didn't see that.
I tweeted it out. It's videos on my Twitter if you want to go look at it. But he said something like he thinks Boo Carter's going to be a hell of a player, but he's like, Boo Carter is going to let you know. He's a little more vocal. He said, Boo's going to let you know he's here, and he's here all day. And I love it. Like, that's the mindset this team has to have. And if they do, I think 11-1's very much in play.
Absolutely. Man. We shall see soon enough. Saturday, 12:45. It all starts there. I guess I can ask you a couple of these, Zach. For the games coming up this weekend. It actually starts Thursday.
Yeah. I
Colorado
think UTC plays Thursday night. Tennessee,
they do.
Opponent, so first Power 4 opponent.
Western Carolina, they were a 33-point favorite, and NC State is ranked number 24 preseason. So we'll get a preview of NC State there. Definitely going to be watching that one. Colorado plays North Dakota State that night. watch out, Colorado, for sure. Colorado a 10-point favorite in that one, more than I
think
probably
Colorado
would
will
have thought.
probably still win just because I think Shadur Sanders and Travis Hunter are talented players.
Can drag them to a victory.
Yes, like they did 4 times last year.
Yes, it will happen. And then you have, let's see on Saturday if there are any like legit big games. Clemson, Georgia.
I mean,
Georgia
I think you have to go
40.
Georgia. Clemson just lost a 4-star commit to Duke today or yesterday. I mean, Dabo's thing is not losing commits, right? Like that's something he prides himself on. I mean, you can count on like 2 hands the amount of commits that they've lost over the last however many years, 7, 8, 9 years. To lose one to Duke, though, I mean, that's tough. That's a tough look for Clemson. I mean, it feels like that thing's just going their own direction for Dabo.
You have Alabama, or sorry, not Alabama. Alabama plays Western Kentucky. I was looking at it right there.
TJ Finley, former Auburn quarterback, named the starter for Western Kentucky.
Well,
he was
in that case,
also was at LSU and somewhere else. I think it's like his 4th school. I think
he's already seen Bama. That's a WKU victory if I've ever seen one. Miami and Florida, though, that the start of what could be a horrendous campaign for.
Is that game at Florida?
I think it is, which I actually think Florida may win that one. I don't know.
I don't know. That's a complete toss up to me. I wouldn't be shocked either way that one does. I think I would give Florida
Miami 2.5.
I would give Florida the edge. I think Florida. I don't think they're gonna be great, but I don't think they're gonna be like 3-9 or anything like that. I think they could be like 6-6 type deal, and 7-6, 7-5 maybe, and that might not be enough to save his job. There, we've seen how Florida goes through coaches.
Yeah, he would be done at a 6-6. Notre Dame and Texas A&M is the other one. That's the nightcap. I'm gonna say Notre Dame crashes and burns. I don't see it. I just don't see it.
I could see Notre Dame winning that game though. They're a little more established. A&M with a new head coach, kind of a new start
A&M
there.
Is tough. Oof.
Yeah, that's true. I like Marcus Freeman. I don't know if he's gonna succeed there. I'm kind of like you. I don't fully believe in him, but I think they can still win some games.
Man, I just want to see some fun like that Florida State Georgia Tech.
Yeah, that was a good one. That was a fun ending, and I feel like everyone was kind of pulling for Georgia Tech.
You know what also had a really fun end, and I'm not saying this sarcastically, was New Mexico State and Montana State, the game after Florida State and Georgia Tech. It was really fun. New Mexico State had to lead the entire game, and they lost right at the end. Montana State made a huge comeback in the 4th quarter. That's a fun game.
What a Butch Jones ending there.
Oh, it was very butchish. Here's one. Noah says 11-1, just like you, Zach. That's his prediction for the season. There you go. From this show to God's ears, let it be. Speak it into existence.
10-2 gets you in the playoff.
That's true.
11-1
Give yourself a chance.
11-1 might get you a bye, depending on how the rest of everything else shakes out.
I would think so. Yeah. Ah, man. All right. Saturday. Oh, and this was silly. I should have promoted this all through the show, actually. Myself, Jonathan Crompton, back for another season here on A to Z. Watch us. Halftime, post-game. Former Vols quarterback Jonathan Crompton on here with me, breaking down all the action.
That's the best insight you can get. I mean, a former Tennessee quarterback played in some big games for Tennessee, played for Philip Fulmer and Lane Kiffin, and you get in the moment, analysis of what he's seen, which is often
he's a football coach.
Yeah,
which is football coach of a high school.
Often different than what just a normal fan, people like us might see. I mean, he really sees the game from a different lens.
Yes, the way he is able to break down quarterbacks is on a complete other level from what you will find basically anywhere outside of someone who is a former quarterback at Tennessee. Yeah. So you won't find that in a post-game show anywhere else. I will just say that and check it out on A to Z Sports here. All righty. Charlie Burris, Zach Reagan, thank you so much for tuning in. We could not do it without you. To everybody in the comments, seriously, it's too many comments to go through, everybody who tuned in, but you know who you are. You've been here the whole game. You've been here a bunch of different times. All right. Thanks so much. Go Vols. Let's go have an 11-1 season, and it starts right now. And we will talk to y'all. Well, I'll talk to y'all Saturday with Jonathan Crompton, but me and Zach will talk to y'all next week.
See you guys later.